to welcome and engage the new woman. So as individuals, you can't really go that far. And then second, maybe you talked about this, and I'll ask you offline or after the meeting. In your first talk about this with the Soviet Union, which I didn't hear, you know, I'm thinking about Leningrad and when the Nazis attacked for how long, you know, they were under siege and constant bombardment. And what I understand is the entire city of people in Leningrad turned out and played all, you know, mothers, daughters, among others, to do what they could to keep the Nazis out. And so I'm not sure how many other instances there are like that, about when a city was under fierce attack and the entire city turns out to fight and resist.
Calais,
Okay.
Calais.
So that's a time when women, maybe and daughters, aunts, etc., have no training, maybe, but they probably really fought in that war, you know. So I think that'd be fascinating to learn about.
Okay.
That makes me think of the third thing I wanted to say. During the dirty wars in South America, so Chile, Argentina, blah, 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 how the women fought as activists. They were killed. I mean, I've been to Chile, I've been to Argentina, I've been to all those countries, I've been to Brazil, and I could see where women were stuck in little cells, and then every Wednesday they would be taken out and thrown off airplanes and killed.
That's right.
And so these were
Helicopters.
women that were very, very vibrant and very strong activists.
Let me stop there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then take a few others. Give you some brief answers. First one was about, you mentioned about the WACs in World War II. There were women in the Army Air Corps in World War II. They flew transport planes, often, and sometimes bombers too. They would fly them from the United States to England. Okay. There were also women who trained men as pilots. Okay. And so they did play a role, but they were not allowed to play roles such as in bombers or in fighter planes or stuff like that. They were supposed to be in, quote, non-combat roles, okay, even though they were pilots. And, you know, even some of them even trained men to be pilots in bombers or pilots in fighter planes.
There's a campaign to name Oakland Airport after Maggie G.
There is?
Yep. Mm-hmm. I'll get you the little thing.
Send me something on it.
Yeah.
In the Wonder Woman, just as an aside, the woman who played Wonder Woman,
Israeli.
yeah, was in, you know, she was an Israeli, but when she served her time in the Israeli army, she trained soldiers in hand-to-hand combat.
For real?
And they say that that's one of the reasons why she was so agile in the movie, because she had experience in it. But the Spanish Civil War, yes, you know, I could have read you something about it, but you know, I had so much to cover to try to overwhelm you about this sort of stuff. You know, I could, you know, but yeah, women did fight in the Spanish Civil War. You know, I can't, you know, without going into detail, I just, yeah, confirm that they did, just like in other wars, like wars of liberation, where women fought. And I try to give you some examples of this. In regard to in regard to the women coming into the U.S. military, when the draft ended, all right, the sources of male, that was the draft ended in what, 71, I think. The sources of males kind of dried up. And in order to replace them, right, that's when they began comprehensive recruitment of women, because they couldn't get enough, there were not enough men to fill these roles. So they got up to, which is today about 15% of the military is women. And so it did happen after a certain time. The first woman general, you mentioned about Joan of Arc. I believe the first woman general in China was in around 3000 BC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
China.
In relationship to women after wars, what surprises me more than women going back to traditional roles is why not all that many women began to fight to change, that is, women who had the military experience began to fight to change their roles as women civilians. Okay? The pressures are very great. I mean, many of the women, it's true, especially in more traditional societies, like in Vietnam, for example, women saw this as a temporary thing. Before they went in, it was a temporary thing to save their country saved, then they go back to what their traditional role is. And they might reminisce on what it was like before, but it's accepted by the society that this is their true role, and most women who went through that experience still accepted that as their traditional role. Some did not, but most did. Okay, in regard to the Soviets in World War II, so I'm sorry you were not at one of my talks on this, but maybe I'd give it again because I don't think it was recorded for posterity. So each city in the Soviet Union there had a special unit which was made up of ordinary citizens who were trained to fight, okay, to defend their city, okay? Both in a support role as well as in a active combat role, you know, with weapons. And so that was kind of common. That was in addition to all the others, the regular army, right? The partisan army, okay, who also were involved in defense of cities. But each city also trained their citizens to defend themselves. So it wasn't just like an accident or something like where they just took it on spontaneously. They were trained for this. Okay, so continue on.
Yeah, Rich.
Well, I wanted to, I don't want to take anything from Gene, but I wanted to mention the most famous military person today in the world, Major Tulsi Gabbard. And I wanted to ask, and who was an anti-war, and I wanted to ask what, more generally, what do you think of the political role, if any, of women in the modern imperial military? That
Over
is,
my ear. Yeah, gold layer. See that in there.
Well, they have reactionary roles, but what about, are women generally more progressive or less progressive in the military than
Yeah,
men?
yeah. You know that I really it would be totally anecdotal because I've never read any studies which systematically attempt to look at women. I mean, I read studies where it looks at officers at different ranks. It looks at enlisted persons of different ranks, but it doesn't separate men or women. So I really can't say. I could give you some anecdotal stuff, but I don't think that that would prove something one way or the other. So that's a deficiency on my part, I'll put it that way, based upon the deficiency of data.
Okay, Rich is waiting for the next question.
So I
Then
wanted
you-
to take that thing about the women that come back after a war and then go back to the house or whatever, take care of the kids and raise the
Speak
family.
louder, please.
Really, I just need to take a deeper breath. I breathe out and then I try to talk. It doesn't work. So the phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, the fact that after the war, whether it's Vietnam or whatever, Vietnamese women, after they fight, often, mostly, go back to their traditional roles, that question. And I think that whether it's scientific proof or anecdotal or not, good point, that to me what that really shows is how important the work that traditional women's, so-called traditional women's work is, that it can only be put on hold during the war when it's life or death. In other words, you're not going to be able to raise the family you had or don't have yet if you don't win the war, if you don't live through the war. So that, I think, to the degree it's necessary, or your whole bunch will die, like in Leningrad or whatever. But then when people go back, I think what it really, I think you spoke to it, is that it's more the problem of, the way the society is structured and everything, where men take up more of the direct role of washing the dishes, changing the diapers, watching the children over a long period of time so they get through year to year, and all those things that women do through traditional. So we haven't really come to the point, whether it's men's consciousness or women's political organization or whatever, where we can deal with that like we want to, or like some of us want to, like many women I'm sure want to. So I'm just saying, I think it really emphasizes how important that is, and you can't really, someone's got to take care of the family. Until we figure out how to share it better, I'm happy the women do. I mean, we owe them, so whether they get credit as the leaders or not, that's another question. I'm just saying, I wouldn't underestimate that. I'm speaking for myself right now, for a couple of women.
One more.
raised my
Let
kids.
me go back to Richard. I just thought of something, okay? And that is, if you look at women who are in anti-war veterans organizations, okay, and that would be some indicator, okay? And again, I haven't seen any studies, but just on the basis of, looking at these organizations briefly, I would say that the proportion of women is no greater in those organizations than the proportion of women in the military, okay, currently serving. So I would say if there were like anti-war or anti-imperialist women who were active, okay, by virtue of being in those types of organizations like Veterans Against the War or whatever organization, I'd say it's about 15%, which is the same as in the military. So, whatever you want to make of that, but that's, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Wonderful talk. As much as I love Tulsi Gabbard, my true love is Lyudmila Pavlichenko, who was the most deadly female sniper, Soviet sniper in World War II. Not only that, she's listed as one of the top 10 most deadly women. No, 10 most deadly snipers in all history, male or female.
Who are the other 9?
I'm not sure, but could check Wikipedia. But the thing is, she served as a sniper. And survival rate of snipers, women snipers in World War II was like, there were 2,500 survived. She was one of them, and her kill rate was over 300 people killed. The American sniper did something like 150, so almost twice that. But the significant thing about her is people asked her, how many men have you killed? And she said, not men, fascists.
Yeah, right on.
Every living Nazi will kill women, children, old folks, but a dead Nazi is harmless. Therefore, when I kill Nazis, I am saving lives. And not only that was she deadly, she was also a very charming female, because the Soviet High Command sent her to the United States on a goodwill tour to get the United States to enter World War II. And she was successful. She told them, well, gentlemen, why do you not join us in the war? Why are you hiding behind my skirts? And then that's when we opened the second front. So she's very persuasive as well as
Say
deadly.
her name again.
Ludmila Pavlichenko. Woody Guthrie has a song about her. Miss Pavlichenko.
You can get her online.
Yeah.
I think she have a YouTube of her visit to the United States, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But she was among, she might have had the largest number of kills, but the women snipers formed about 45% of all snipers in the Soviet Union. Uh-huh. And as collectively, they had a higher kill rate than the 55% of the snipers who were men. And what struck me the most when I was reading about them, especially in relationship to women, and some of the arguments, especially put out by radical feminists, that women are unsuitable for a man's activities, excuse me, like war, because women are life givers, not life takers, and on and on and on. Sniping is one of the most personalized things within a war. It's not like you're bombing somebody from 10,000, 15,000 feet. It's not like you're shooting somebody that's across the street or something. This is where you track a person, right? Sometimes for hours, occasionally for days, depending on the person that you want, but certainly for at least several minutes. You watch that person, they might be talking with friends, they might be showing pictures of their family to other persons. You get a close relationship to a lot of the persons that you kill, all right? And then you kill them. And I always wondered, if women were, how shall I say, life givers and not life takers. They can be both. Okay, but the argument is that they're not life takers. That I wonder how women could operate in such roles, such as they did in the Soviet Union.
She said she saved lives.
Okay, I think
Yes,
Nina
right.
is next.
Those are reasons.
Sorry,
Just
I
hold
just
on.
had one more thing.
Nina goes next. Nina, your question?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to ask, what effect does high technology have on making women more prevalent? In other words, they have a lot of people who are, say, sitting at a big desk in the Midwest, and then they're bumping off people, automatically by looking through a screen. So would that make it more? Would that entail more women then because of that, because of high technology?
I would say yes and no. No, in the sense that they rapidly increase in women because of the decline of the draft. High tech just came in very recently, okay? And so you find that more and more persons are involved in high tech. And of course, high tech, when I was speaking, in response to your answer, high tech is a very impersonal kind of situation, except for certain drone situations where you do follow a person around for a while, you know, that might more personalize it. But it's on a screen. It's not like you see the person through a scope and that person is right there. It's on a screen and the person is thousands of miles away,
Well, you
right?
may not have that.
So you don't have this sense of
Well,
closeness. But I don't know how many women are involved in that kind of cyber warfare, but because it is increasing, I would say that, yeah, probably more women would become involved, just like more men would become involved. But as an original reason why the women were all of a sudden increasing, it's not because of high tech.
Except Michelle Flournoy has a good chance of being defense secretary if the Democrats
Florida.
Who?
didn't come back. Yeah, Michelle Flournoy. She would have,
Oh, yeah.
Hillary would have made her defense secretary.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Tulsi Gabbard.
I don't think so.
I just have one other thing to say. When I was in Nicaragua, now Nicaragua is known for the fathers of the family to rape their young daughters, and I don't know, it's terrible. Even Danielle supposedly raped one of his kids. But,
He did?
yeah. But anyway, we stayed at this feminist lesbian run hostel and I was there. And they took us to the museum where they had all this women's art. And as you walked into the museum, there's this big picture of this pregnant woman with, you didn't see her face, with her big stomach, and she's holding next to her hand a rifle.
Okay, there is somebody here.
I'm wondering why you said
Thought that was good.
it's not about like high tech because I feel like what enabled anyone to participate, man or woman, in modern warfare is high tech, like weaponry. And like the whole like 1,000-mile away bomb someone from a computer screen is just like an extenuation of like guns. So I don't really follow.
Yeah, all right. So I didn't say that. What I said was the impetus. The way that I understood her question was, is there a reason why more women are in the military because of high tech? And my answer was the impetus was the end of the draft. It's not because more women or more men are going to become involved in high tech as things move on. That was the point I was making. You know, high tech obviously has an impact in terms of more women getting into that area. Now, I don't know whether women join the military in order to get into high tech. I assume some do, but I don't know in terms of actual data how many say that they want to get in the military so they acquire, quote, high tech skills, and the kind of high tech skills they get are not, drones are one, but there are many others, like in gathering military intelligence is largely done through high tech. Sabotage is done largely through high tech now, etc.
Any other questions or comments? Do you want to wrap up or?
I wrapped up already.
All right.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, thank you.